Greetings and salutations, fellow geeks. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Feel free to comment down below. Now let's get into it. Viewer discretion is advised.
Lockdown, lockdown, let's all hide. Lock the doors and stay inside. Crouch on down, don't make a sound, and don't cry or you'll be found.
Gotten a horrific piece of news. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, an active shooting situation.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Oh my child, I know you're hurt and you can't let go. It's not your fault and you don't deserve all the bad and the hurt. I know you tried so hard. I know you've done your part. It's not fair. You did your time. How much longer will you suffer in this life? But don't give up. Just hold on tight. It'll be alright.
On February 14th, 2018, in only 6 minutes between 2:21 and 2:27 in the afternoon, 17 innocent lives would be brutally taken and 17 more injured. This all happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Parkland is a suburb outside of Miami, which is southeast Florida. A school should be one of the safest places a parent could ever bring their kids. But sadly, that's not the case anymore. But Parkland's school shooting was different. This was one of the first in American history to ever have the shooter still alive after the killing spree. But for the first time ever, encapsulated in time, the entire Building 12, which was the crime scene, was kept as is for the trial's sake. Never in America have we ever had a case such as this. And statistically speaking, the shooter, Nicholas Cruz, doesn't really have any excuses as to why he did what he did. He wasn't bullied, he wasn't poor, he wasn't malnourished, he wasn't deprived from any type of economic or social programs. It was just pure evil. You'll come to realize this could have been prevented, and it's all in the hands of the school system and the FBI. But what's done is done. We can't undo the past. All we can do is learn and try to pay it forward. So thank you for taking time out of your day to learn and remember these beautiful souls, that they may never be forgotten. As usual, viewer discretion is highly advised, for what I'm about to tell you is not suitable or pleasant for most viewers and listeners. But before we start, you should know that there are 76 cameras on the school property. And in Building 12, where the shootings happened, there are 13 cameras. Building 12 is the only 3-story building. Each floor has 3 cameras in the ceiling hallway, one on each west entrance, east entrance, and the center of the hallway. The west entrance cameras look east, the east cameras look west, and the center cameras look west. There are 2 stairwells, one on the east side of the building and one on the west. Both stairwells have 2 cameras each, one on the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor. There are no cameras inside of the classrooms. You will not see everything, but there were some graphic materials that were used for the public view, either through the media or the trial. So once again, viewer discretion is advised. I'm going to take us back to February 14th, 2018, right before the last bell rings. Let's begin. At 2:19 in the afternoon, an Uber driver drops Nicholas Cruz off at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. The driver testifies that he was nervous and he had a big black bag and he was supposed to go to music class. As Cruz makes his way onto the school property, he's spotted by Andrew Medina, a school monitor, but he doesn't do much. He radioed an alert to another campus monitor, David Taylor. Taylor enters the west side of Building 12. As Cruz enters the east side of Building 12, there are other students in front of him entering also. They are coming out from Building 8 hallway. Ashley Baez, Luke Hoyer, and Martine Duque. Another student, Chris McKenna, asked to use the restroom, so he's also in Building 12 hallway at this time. Chris high-fives Martine as they pass by each other. But when Chris gets to the stairwell, he's alarmed by Cruz loading his AR-15.
Rifle in his hands. I was stunned. That's 1 second, and he said to me, "Get out of here. Things are about to get bad."
As Chris leaves and tries to alert staff nearby, Cruz enters the hallway, fully loaded. There are 5 people in the hallway. Students Luke Hoyer, Martine Duque Anguiano, Gina Montalto, Ashley Baez, and campus monitor David Taylor. Minus David Taylor in this visual, from Ashley Baez's testimony, she says she saw him, he freaked out, turned around, and ran out the west stairs. Gina Montalto is sitting outside room 1215, doing some schoolwork quietly. But before Luke and Martine can get back in the room, shots fired. Gina, Luke, and Martine go down instantly. Cruz then turns to room 1216 and opens fire. Student Alex Schachter was sitting at his desk and shot fatally twice. A lot of people thought it was a drill, but then quickly learned it wasn't. And they already had a fire drill earlier that day. Let's pause for a moment because there's so much going on. Ashley Baez was also shot down the hall in her leg. But when she saw she had a moment, she ran across the hall into room 1210 to take cover. Also, 3 other students were shot and injured in room 1216. After studying victim testimony, I believe it was William Olson, Justin Colton, and Alex Dorette. Before Cruz does any more damage, he kneels down, takes off his backpack, and inside was a tactical vest. This vest has 10 pockets, and in each pocket has a loaded magazine. He takes one of the magazines out and reloads. Then he stands up, looks over to Gina, Luke, and Martine, and fires again. Then he continues and goes over to room 1214 and fires into the room. Unfortunately, Helena Ramsey and Nicholas Dorette were killed. And yes, Nick and Alex are brothers. Another quick pause. Students Isabel Chaker, Sam Fuentes, Sam Grady, and Daniela Maniscal were all injured in room 1214. Based off State Prosecutor Michael Satt's opening statement, which I did verify with Broward County State Attorney Office, Nicholas Cruz at this point turns around and shoots Gina, Luke, and Martine once again. That's the 3rd time he shot them. But then Cruz goes back to room 1216, but this time he kills Elena Petty and Alyssa Alhadef. At this point, Athletic Director Chris Hickson enters the west side of the building, but Cruz sees him and shoots him as well. Mr. Hickson is badly hurt, but he goes towards the elevator and takes cover. 2 other students were also injured in room 1216, Genesis Valentin and Keshava Mangapuram. Cruz starts walking west, but then turns right to room 1213. He shoots and kills Carmen Shentrup. He also injures Ben Wickender, Madeline Wilson, and Samantha Mayer. Coach Aaron Feiss was alerted by Chris McKenna, and he's on the way almost here to Building 12. But as Cruz continues, he sees Chris Hickson in the corner and shoots him fatally. And at the same time, Coach Aaron Feiss is pulling up with his golf cart. He can clearly hear the gunshots right now, killing Chris Hickson. Yet he did not hesitate to go inside to try to help. And Coach Aaron Feiss enters the west stairwell at the same time Cruz does, but then Cruz shoots him twice in the chest, and he sadly dies in the doorway. In less than 3 minutes, Nicholas Cruz killed 9 students, 2 coaches, and injured 13 others. The first floor was a war zone. There were 70 shots fired, and 3 shots in the stairwell. As all of that was happening, the second floor heard a lot. His rifle was so powerful, when he used it, the percussion in the hallway made the dust from the ceilings fall down like smoke. Halfway through it, at 2:22 and 38 seconds, the first fire alarm had gone off. But since they heard the gun so many times, they did not evacuate. Instead, they treated the situation like a school shooting. They locked the door, turned off the lights, got away from the door, and made no noise. As Cruz hunted the second floor, it was quieter. They weren't taken as surprised as the first floor was, since they had more time to prepare. Luckily, no one gets hurt on the second floor. Teachers even taped the door windows with paper so he could not look in. The third floor couldn't hear the shots from the first floor as much as the second floor did. So when the first fire alarm went off about a minute ago, the third floor started to evacuate into the hallways. By this time, Cruz has fired into 2 empty rooms, room 1231 and 1234. He only fired his gun 6 times. But actually, it was perfect timing because the kids were coming down the stairwell, but then they heard the shots and started going back upstairs. Cruz didn't even know that anyone was on the second floor. They did so well being quiet, and even a student said he heard him say to himself, "Nobody's here." One of the teachers accidentally locked his keys in the room when they evacuated, so there's a lot of kids in the hallway. Another teacher, Scott Beagle, unlocks his door to let students in. But quickly by surprise, Cruz appears, and in the matter of split seconds, he kills Mr. Beagle and injures Miss Stacy Lapel and students Kyle Lamont, Cara Laughlin, Meadow Pollock, Joaquin Oliver, and Anthony Borges. There were about 15 to 20 students, for what I understand, outside in the hallway. Ernest Raspersky was the teacher that locked himself out of his room, and right now they're in front of his room trying to get in. I'm going to go over a replay of who was where while Cruz was walking to the stairwell to the 3rd floor. I also want to make note that the survivors' testimonies all stated they thought this was the Code Red drill they were expecting, since rumor of having one was going around in staff meetings and the intercom. However, it was very odd because they had a fire drill earlier that morning, and they've never had a fire drill twice in one day, and also one at the end of the day when they were trying to get ready to go home. So the students and the staff were all thinking this for the first few minutes, but then when Cruz got to the 3rd floor and made the first shots and caused injuries with blood everywhere, they immediately knew then it was not a drill. Here's a picture of Mr. Aspersky and students trying to hide in the alcove. As I do a replay, you'll see Meadow going towards Joaquin, and they go to the women's restroom alcove for a second. But when Meadow is shot, she goes across the hall to Cara, and when Joaquin is shot, he runs to the men's restroom alcove. Then Cruz open fires in room 1255, but fortunately, he runs out of ammo. Cruz then turns back around to the east stairwell to reload. Mr. Aspersky noticed Cruz reloading, so he tells all the students to run down to the west stairwell to exit. But the hallway is riddled with bullets once again. Kyle Lamont is being shown shot now, but he was really shot before Cruz reloaded. And sadly, Jamie Gutenberg and Peter Wang were shot before they could escape. Cruz starts walking more west, and he sees Meadow and Cara in the alcove. Heroically, Meadow covers Cara, but they're both shot and killed. And then he discovers Joaquin hiding and fatally shoots him as well. Cruz continues west and sees Peter Wang on the floor. But Cruz goes first to the stairwell door and peeks through and tries to open it, but Mr. Aspersky has his foot in the door so he can't open it. And I read that in the surveillance videos, Peter's legs were still moving. so he was awake and aware and alive at this point. But Cruz fatally shot him at close range. According to the medical examiner, Peter suffered 12 gunshot wounds, the most out of all of the victims. He was the last victim, but definitely not the least. Then Cruz goes to the teacher's lounge and tries to shoot out the window at running students down below outside. Luckily, the windows were hurricane-proof and nobody got hurt. While Cruz was busy on the third-floor teacher's lounge trying to shoot through the windows, Mr. Ospierski fled down to the second-floor teacher's lounge and hid and locked himself in there. This was an odd part because Cruz had a period of time in the teacher's lounge thinking and waiting what he should do next. But since Cruz couldn't find anyone else to shoot and kill, he ended up fleeing as well. When he got to the west stairwell, he took off his tactical vest and left his gun there also. This weapon of mass destruction fired 139 times in Building 12. 70 on the first floor, 2 in the west stairwell, 6 on the second floor, and 61 on the third floor. When Cruz left Building 12, it was eerily quiet. But outside, the world was full of chaos. Neighboring fire departments and police departments and sheriff's departments and everyone that was willing and able was at ground zero. Within minutes, they were inundated with parents waiting outside anxiously, trying to get inside and save their kids and find out where they were. The massacre only lasted 5 minutes and 33 seconds, yet there were dozens of SWAT and uniformed officers surrounding the school.
Oh, look, they got guns out. Oh! How you
No.
Yeah, you see, it's, oh, there's mad cops at the damn school.
Snipers?
What the
Gang.
Even though there were more than enough law enforcement agencies outside of the buildings, it took nearly 20 minutes to start evacuating, and there's a handful of reasons why there was a delay. First, no one officially called in a code red until halfway through the massacre. It should have been David Taylor, since he was one of the first to hear the gunshots, but ran up to the second-floor janitor's closet and hid. And he had a radio. But I'll give credit where credit is due. It was campus monitor Elliot Bonner. Elliot Bonner made the code red alert when he discovered Aaron Feiss's body in the stairwell and heard gunshots. Another reason for the delay would be because other campus monitors were hearing the gunshots but saying it might be firecrackers. But then you heard other student testimonies that they knew it was gunshots even from across the entire school campus.
I'm a junior.
Junior, what happened?
Okay, so they pulled the fire alarm. We all left out of there. I heard at least 5 gunshots. Me and my friends, we ran as fast as we could by the West Glades gate. We hopped the fence, went to Walmart, and I called my family and my friends.
Where were you when the shots rang out?
I was by the highway over there. Yep.
Just so happened you were on that side of campus?
Yeah.
And you knew immediately what was going on?
Yeah, no doubt. I heard it, and I ran.
And so did Nicholas Cruz. When he left Building 12, he hurried up to catch up to the other students so he could blend in. You should know that he actually has the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas JROTC uniform since he went to that school before. And while on the field with other students, some of them knew each other, so they had small talk about college and plans for their future. Another reason why things might have been delayed was because there were almost too many hands on deck. A lot of things got convoluted because trying to be on the same page with different departments from different counties was a bit difficult. But in my opinion, the most important crucial part of the delay was the lack of action going into Building 12. The first law enforcement officer to enter Building 12 was almost 10 minutes after Cruz had already left the building, and then some of them were just too scared to go in. But a lot of them were just doing what they were told, which was to stand down. Incident Commander Chief Jan Jordan did not follow trained protocol. She ordered a perimeter to be established around the school, but that's not what should have been done during an active shooter. That was training before Columbine, but after Columbine, law enforcement were trained to rush towards gunshots. Also, Cape Coral paramedics wanted to go into Building 12 and assist anyone, but Captain Jordan denied them entry 6 times. Precious lives could have been saved, according to testimonies, since every second matters. And then, Information Officer Scott Peterson, not this Scott Peterson, This Scott Peterson. Apparently, he was the only armed personnel on scene as the shooting started, yet he waited outside for 48 minutes. And you can't just do that, so after a 15-month internal investigation, he was actually arrested, and Captain Jan Jordan lost her position in the Broad County Sheriff's Office. And as if all that wasn't enough, Assistant Principal Jeff Morford was giving false information to law enforcement regarding video surveillance of Cruz still being inside Building 12. As the assistant principal, he should be aware of how things work. So with the delay, in reality, Cruz was already about a half a mile down the road. And honestly, I could probably make another video on how many things went wrong. But let's circle back and see where Cruz is at this time. I personally don't think Cruz thought he was going to make it out alive, but when he did, he went across the school fields, walked a little bit further, and there's a Walmart. And inside is a Subway. Cruz nonchalantly orders a blue raspberry mixed with cherry Slurpee. I guess all that killing makes somebody thirsty. At this point, law enforcement is on the lookout for his description, thanks to student Kyle Lamont. Cruz obliterated his ankle, yet he still managed to go down 3 flights of stairs and across a football field to take cover, and he was able to describe to law enforcement what he looked like and what he was wearing. Cruz spends only 2 minutes in Walmart, and as he leaves with his refreshing beverage, he continues south. He ends up making his way to a McDonald's. Another interesting thing happens there also. Cruz decides to sit down in a booth with a student he doesn't even know. It didn't seem as weird that a lot of students were sporadically fleeing every direction. But bizarrely enough, this student is John Wilford, which is the brother of Madeline Wilford, whom Cruz shot 4 times in room 1213, but at this moment, she's nearly bleeding to death. John is anxious because he can't get a hold of Maddie, and he's waiting for his mom to pick him up. Cruz asks him for a ride several times, but he declines because, well, there's a lot going on right now and he's more concerned about finding his sister. When John walks out to meet his mom, Cruz follows. He diligently continues to ask for rides, but John diligently continues to say no. All right, all together now. No means no. But after 6,952 times, Cruz finally gave up. Am I the only one that's wondering why he didn't call an Uber? But anyways, Cruz decides to go south, and while he's walking through a residential complex, he's spotted by Coconut Creek police officer Michael Leonard. Thankfully, the manhunt is over.
What's going on? What's going on today, bro?
The demons, man.
Demons?
Voices.
Yeah, no problem.
Voices.
Voices and demons?
Where's the voices? What the Where What happened?
Shut up. Just be quiet, man.
Shut up.
Did these demons tell you to buy a Slurpee from Subway and ask for rides from random people? I wouldn't be surprised if he practiced this 10 times in front of a mirror. But let's face it, he's not getting a Grammy Award for Best Actor. But sadly, it's not over. This is now just starting the chapter of a new beginning. Usually, the shooter commits suicide or is killed by law enforcement. However, with this case, there is a trial. And he pleads guilty to all accounts.
How do you wish to plead?
Guilty. I am very sorry for what I did, and I have to live with it every day. And that if I were to get a second chance, I will do everything in my power to try to help others. And I am doing this for you, and I do not care if you do not believe me. And I love you, and I know you don't believe me, but I have to live with this every day. And it brings me nightmares, and I can't live with myself sometimes. But I try to push through because I know that's what you guys would want me to do. I hate drugs, and I believe this country would do better if everyone would stop smoking marijuana and doing all these drugs and causing racism and violence out in the streets. I'm sorry, and I can't even watch TV anymore. And I'm trying my best to maintain my composure, and I just want you to know I'm really sorry. And I hope you give me a chance to try to help others. If I believe it's your decision to decide where I go, whether I live or die. Not the jury's. I believe it's your decision. I'm sorry.
But is he really, though? He's no Picasso, however. He drew several disturbing evil images. The drawing on the top right of this picture is actually with his own blood. And as they say, he's not sorry. He's just sorry he got caught. Because he's even stated in jail that he wanted to kill more people, and he enjoyed it. And if ill penmanship was a crime, he'd be doing life in prison just for that alone. But for what I could gather with this letter, he basically was wanting to kill children and hailing Satan as his god. Well, I wonder if there's any art classes in prison. It took years to build this case and gather everything since there were so many victims. But in the summer of 2022, the trial began and was led by Honorable Judge Elizabeth Scherer. The trial was wild due to the unprofessionalism of the defense team. But each day, week, and month went by, and the families had to go in and listen to all of the testimonies. They braced themselves as they had to hear the gunshots that killed their loved ones. The reason I made this video is because I followed the trial in the summer of 2022. It impacted me on so many different emotional notes. It made me sad, angry, horrified, disgusted. But I still highly recommend going through the trial yourself because I'm not going to be able to list everything that did happen here. I'll try my best to paraphrase it. The state went for the death penalty, which have 7 aggravating factors applicable, which Nicholas Cruz qualified for all of them. There's a 69-page report done just on some of his troubling behavior and red flags, and domestic violence was a big thing. Police were called to his house more than 30 times since 2010, and he had over 55 different disciplinary incidents at school. Yet they still downplayed his red flags. September 2017, he made the comment on YouTube that he wants to be a professional school shooter. Somebody that saw it actually tipped it into the FBI, but supposedly the FBI said they could not contact or locate who made the comment. But I mean, come on, it says his name, Nicholas Cruz. Where's Captain Obvious when you need him? Well, they would find out who that is by 5 months later. The defense team was a circus, to say the least. They were so unprofessional on so many levels. Judge Scherer had to call them out publicly several times during the trial. One of the public defenders was joking around with Cruz and had the nerve to flick off the camera. Low blow. But what's not funny are how these kids died.
Oh my God!
Bro, what the? I know you guys hate me.
Now I'm going behind the cover.
It sounds like somebody in the bathroom. Shh. It doesn't, right? Yeah. What the fuck? Window. No.
Oh God. Oh my God. Oh God. Oh my God.
We got that side covered or no?
That's your gymnasium. There should be people. That's your football field. Then the rest of the building's a big square, top and bottom, with an open courtyard. Okay?
So we got this side of the school covered. That hasn't been searched, right?
That has not been searched
So
right
we
now.
need to cover down on that area.
Okay. Can you patch through with Coral Springs as soon as they're done? Because they've been in there.
7 Kilo 1. I'm landline with an administrator who has a person in the office working the cameras. Stand by. One person on the camera says the subject was last seen on the second floor now. Last seen on the second floor.
Second floor. Second floor.
Which building? The 12 or 1300 building?
You go through the courtyard. You see that building right there? That's your second floor. It goes all the way around. And it shoots off to the right, crossing down to the right.
7 I have CO2 from Springs to the command post. Where is it? They're staging at the south side of the Salt Ranch on the Coral Springs side.
Alright guys, 3 down, 3 injured. Is anybody injured?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Right here.
Where? Come here.
Right here, right here. Right here.
Can you come up? Can you walk? Where were you shot? Not even looking. I need help. I need help. I need help. Alright guys, 3 down, 3 injured. Is anybody injured? Anybody shot? Where? Come here.
Right here.
You come up. Can you walk? Where were you shot? I need help. I need help. Somebody help me. We got.
Logan, my desk is my water bottle. Can you get my phone? With the bag, with the water bottle next to the balloon. Yes.
Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Follow me. Okay, please.
Where?
Hug the wall. Go.
Oh my God.
Over the street. All right, come on.
Is that a joke to you? Not only do you represent to defend evil, but you also lack the common core, what real humans have, compassion. And when you lack that important quality, you lack what a civil community is built on. And for what? Stupidity? Maybe ignorance? Whatever the reason, it doesn't justify Zero standards of empathy from this, as if these families haven't suffered enough. Anyone who decides to attack a victim again should be ashamed of themselves. I've waited a long time to say all of that. Let's carry on.
I want to speak to you about the unspeakable, about this defendant's goal-directed, planned, systematic murder, mass murder of 14 children, an athletic director, a teacher, and a coach.
Alright, so here's the plan. I'm gonna go take an Uber in the afternoon before 2:40. From there, I'll go onto school campus, walk up the stairs, unload my bags, and get my AR and shoot people down at the main courtyard. Await, and people will die.
Hello, my name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get it done. Location is Stone Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you'll all know who I am. You're all going to die.
The prosecutors did a damn good job at presenting the aggravating factors against Cruz. But when it was the defense's turn to present, they showed the mitigating factors for Cruz. They tried to paint a picture that he was damaged even before birth, that he was set up for failure and would never succeed in life. The defense team tried to humanize Cruz by gaining sympathy that his mother was an alcoholic and smoked crack during her pregnancy with him. Dr. Kenneth Jones, one of the nation's leading fetal alcohol spectrum disorder experts, took the stand.
Alcohol exposure, I don't think I have ever seen, I know I have never seen so much alcohol consumed by a pregnant woman. He has problems with executive functioning, he has problems with memory, and he has problems with visual spatial processing speed.
Wait, did you say memory?
Very first time you can remember ever doing something that people might look at and say that's not very kind to an animal. How young were you?
I broke a lizard's back with a rock.
And how old were you?
3.
I don't know about you, but I don't remember things at 3 years old. And I think it would be important to note that my mom never drank alcohol nor smoked crack while pregnant with me. And I don't think she's ever smoked crack.
Say crack again.
Crack. Okay, that's enough crack for one day. Dr. Jones made these strong comments and was very confident about his diagnosis for Cruz. However, he only reviewed the health history records of his mother during pregnancy. For what I understand, he never evaluated Cruz himself. Now take a look at this lovely lady. This is Brenda Woodard, Nick's biological mother. But Nicholas was actually adopted by a couple named Roger and Linda Cruz. They were even in the delivery room when Nicholas was born, and a few years later, they adopted his half-brother, Zachary. The defense and the prosecutors both argued how Linda noticed Nicholas having troubling issues even as a baby. Linda did everything she could for Nicholas, and she loved him so much. Yet, nothing she did fully worked. He kept going from diagnosis to diagnosis, medication to medication, program to program. And even though the progress was slow, it wasn't done in full vein. His IQ went from the 70s to the 90s, and his speech did improve. The prosecutors brought in 2 nationwide leading physicians to debunk what Dr. Jones said about Cruz suffering from FASD, which stands for Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder. Dr. Robert Denny is one of the few clinical neuropsychologists that also practice under forensic psychology. And then there's Dr. Charles Scott, who is a forensic psychiatrist. They performed several tests on Cruz and also interviewed him to get a better, proper diagnosis. Well, you heard how Cruz does not suffer from a memory issue, but what is executive functioning? Basically, in a nutshell, how does your brain think? Is it thinking well or not? Can you plan things, remember, focus, and do multiple things at once? And over days in the trial, Dr. Denny, alongside Dr. Scott, both conducted several analytical tests, examinations, and interviews with Cruz, and basically concluded that Dr. Jones' diagnosis was full of There's evidence of Cruz planning the attack days and even months before, with the videos on his phone and his search history. And the CCTV evidence shows how Cruz could focus perfectly with executing his plan. And he doesn't have a problem multitasking either, because he reloaded his gun several times. Not only did Dr. Denny's and Dr. Scott's tests not correlate FASD, but they described it as something called malingering.
What you see when somebody's playing games with you. He's grossly exaggerating very severe psychiatric problems, as well as somatic concerns, body concerns, cognitive concerns, and memory complaints.
Wait, what did you say?
If his attention problems were as bad as this, he couldn't actually take the test. It just doesn't make sense. His scale is, as you can see, almost off the chart, with him attempting to look very, very bad on this test. That's an indication of pretty extreme exaggeration.
Wait, can we hear that one more time for the people in the back?
In plain words, was the defendant faking?
Based on my clinical judgment, I believe it was because he was trying to look more impaired than he is.
And again, that's not characteristic of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, but it is characteristic of antisocial personality disorder.
With all of that said, Dr. Charles Scott took the honor to explain Cruz's more accurate diagnosis, which would include antisocial personality disorder, along with borderline personality disorder.
Combination with the antisocial personality disorder, if you're trying to understand, why did he do this? People can wonder, people just don't do this. Why did he do this on that day? And a lot of characteristics of that borderline, remember again, it's not like a psychotic disorder or a mood disorder, or intense anger. When you feel maybe that you've been not respected, you've not been treated well, and that antisocial then personality disorder fuels the fire also that, well, this is how we're going to take care of this. This is how I'm going to do business. And so I think those two go hand in hand.
During the trial, the families gave victim impact statements to voice how their lives were never the same.
I have 4 tattoos of Peter on my body. I get one every year on February 14th to symbolize that he is still with me, always with me. I can't accept that he is gone.
And then we also learned that Helena Ramsey died on her father's birthday.
That day will never be a celebration and can never be the same for him. And now is filled with pain, as is every day.
But when Chris Hickson's son took the stand, that's when I nearly lost it.
Good afternoon. Mr. Hickson, is your father Mr. Christopher Hickson?
Yeah.
And is there something that you'd like to tell the jury about your dad?
Yeah.
What is that?
I miss him.
It was 4 years ago to everyone, but to me it was yesterday. Alyssa will always be 14, and I will always be at the point in life with her. All I know is a piece of my heart was not just cut out, but it was ripped out of my damn chest. For 4 years, I've watched so many struggle. Well, the only option I've had is to keep it together for my family. And inside, I burned like a damn inferno. It took me so long to be able to feel empathy again.
At 5 a.m. the night before Alex's funeral, I was really struggling writing his eulogy. My son Ryan was trying to help me. He suggested we look through the garbage can in Alex's classroom, in Alex's room underneath his desk, to see what he had thrown away the day before he went to school. Maybe we could find something in there to help me start writing the most painful speech I would ever give. We were shocked when we found the most beautiful poem I had ever read. It was called Life is Like a Roller Coaster. We found out that Alex had written it for Mrs. Haas's 4th period English class. Alex was a talented writer. Even at age 14, his ability to put his feelings and emotions into words is part of what made him so special. Here's the poem that captures what is special and unique about Alex. And Alex's brother Ryan would like to read it to you now.
Life is Like a Roller Coaster, a free verse poem by Alex Schachter. Life is like a roller coaster. It has some ups and downs. Sometimes you can take it slow or very fast. It may be hard to breathe at times, but you just have to push yourself and keep going. Your bar is your safety. It's like your family and friends. You hold on tight and don't let go. But sometimes you might throw your hands up, because your friends and family will always be with you, just like that bar keeping you safe at all times. It may be too much for you at times. The twists, the turns, the upside downs, but you get back up and keep chugging along. Eventually it all comes to a stop. You won't know when or how, but you will know that it will be time to get off and start anew. Life is like a roller coaster.
When Luke was 5 years old, I would tuck him into his bed every night and give him a night kiss. But he would always wipe it off and tell me to come back and give him another kiss. I would go back to his room about 5 times every night to put that kiss right back on his cheek.
As I watched my wife speak, I realized I'm wearing the same clothes that I took Gina to our last father-daughter dance together in.
But not only the families were affected. Anyone and everyone that heard their stories felt their pain. When Luke Hoyer's sister did her impact statement, one of Cruz's defense lawyers had to wipe away her tears. Cara Laughlin's parents couldn't even attend physically, and Joaquin's father decided to stay home for the trial so that he wouldn't have an outburst of anger that would cause for a mistrial. And speaking of mistrial, while the medical examiners went over and over 17 times of autopsy findings, the parents had to compose themselves as best as they could so there wouldn't be a mistrial. They sat there and heard word for word as their bodies, their children's bodies, were ripped apart by this evil. Some were more emotional than others, but they were all stoic and respectful for their child's sake so that they wouldn't have a mistrial.
Would that wound A in and of itself be fatal?
Yes.
And would Mr. Alex Schachter be able to move, because you said it transected his spine?
Correct. It transects his spinal cord.
Okay.
At the level of the 7th thoracic vertebrae.
And what does that mean?
So he can't move from that level down.
But when it came time for the cell phone recordings to be presented as evidence to be heard out loud, can you believe Cruz had the audacity to cover his ears as if it was too difficult for him to endure? It doesn't make sense to me, but since he did what he did, he's the one who has to be held responsible and face his own music. And I don't feel sorry for him. But not only did the jury hear the autopsy testimonies by each medical examiner 17 times, they also saw the graphic reality that painted a horrific picture what happened that day. And the jury didn't just go to the courthouse. They also went to Building 12. For 4.5 years, it was kept as is for this very moment. As they made their way through the hallways, stepping on broken glass that was still in their shoe by the time they got home. There were teddy bears, Valentine's Day cards, books that had bullets, dried rose petals, deflated heart balloons, and piles of blood where all of the victims' bodies laid. Even though the first and third floors were the most gruesome with all of the casualties, as the jury and the staff made their way down the second floor, they felt uneasy because of a quote in the hallway. "Dream as if you'll live forever. Live as if you'll die today." James Dean. But that's just one out of dozens of bizarre things in this case. Crews shot into a classroom that was studying the Holocaust. And speaking of Holocaust, when one of the psychiatrists were interviewing Crews regarding a swastika that he had drawn, Crews said it represented peace, which is so ridiculous it made everyone laugh for a second, and it was actually kind of nice to see them smile for once. But that was short-lived. I want to mention that the autopsy findings for all of the victims is very important. It was so gruesome and disturbing. What happened to each of them? Instead of including the autopsy findings in my documentary here, I decided it would be more appropriate to do a separate video exclusively. The separate autopsy video is nearly 30 minutes long, and I'll be posting that following this documentary. So if you're interested in the scientific aspect of the injuries, please be advised there. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but here's a quick taste of it. Then the bullet lacerated his aorta, but the bullet kept going, and it passed through the left side of his heart. Then the bullet went through the left lower side of his lung and lodged in his left chest. A bullet also grazed his abdomen and left thigh. There's a type of wound called shrapnel, which it's not a penetrating gunshot wound, but it's fragments of a bullet. When the bullet is traveling and it hits something and explodes, and there's close contact of skin, it does significant damage. And Nick had a lot of this on his right hip. Fly high, Nick. You're probably wondering, how the hell did he get one of these? Well, it wasn't from Coconut Creek Pawn, but Crews did try this place first, and the owner, Rosie, denied him. Even though Crews was legally allowed to apply to purchase a gun, Rosie says he never sells to persons under 21 years old. So Crews threw a tantrum and put a bad review on his Yelp. And it's chilling to know why he doesn't sell to anyone under 21. He quotes in the article, "I don't need an 18-year-old to buy a weapon and clear out his high school with it." Wow. Unfortunately, Crews did not give up, and he ended up finding Sunrise Tactical Supply, which was only right down the street from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. Michael Morrison is the owner, or should I say, was the owner, since him and his wife that owned it together ended up shutting it down, which was the appropriate thing to do in my opinion. But as much heat this couple got since Crews bought his weapon at their business, they did not do anything legally wrong. For each gun purchase, he goes through standard protocols. The customer is questioned on top of filling out an application called Form 4473. A background check is done, and the 6-page 4473 form is submitted to the state. If the state approves, then a control number is given for the application. Then the firearm can be released the same day if the individual has a concealed carry permit, or there's a 5 business day wait without a concealed weapons permit. In the 4473 form, it specifically asks questions regarding substance abuse, mental illness, stalking, and domestic violence, along with other things. Mr. Morrison testified he didn't notice any red flags with Crews as he was applying for a gun in his store, and he says he always asks every customer, "What's the objective for purchasing a weapon?" He said Crews replied, "I go shooting with my friends on the weekend, and I just want my own stuff." But wait, didn't the Form 4473 ask about domestic violence and mental health issues? So how do the background checks work? Well, they kinda don't sometimes, clearly. Well, since the 2007 Virginia Tech shooting, the FBI prohibited persons with a criminal record and those adjudicated mentally defective, or has been committed to a mental health institution. Between 1998 and 2014, the FBI rejected over 16,000 potential gun applicants because of the background checks, but that was only 1.4% of roughly 1.2 million background checks. And I'm sorry, I call BS on that because I can almost guarantee you that there are more mentally ill people than that statistic. The reality is, most mentally ill people either are in denial, so they don't seek help, they either can't afford it, so they don't seek help, and a dozen other issues why they don't seek help. So, hide your kids. Even though law enforcement was called to his house more than 30 to 40 times, he was never charged. So the FBI didn't know about his flaming red flags. And even though he spent his entire life in therapy, he was misdiagnosed with autism spectrum disorder along with other things. Even as a young boy, he never played well and had violent behaviors in grade school. There's countless reports in his delinquent conduct throughout his entire life. But this would only be revealed in the trial, since it was shoved under the rug, and he would just be removed from one school to another and have to start the process all over again. But on February 11th, 2017, just a few days shy from 1 year before the massacre, Cruz was approved and purchased the Smith & Wesson M&P AR-15 rifle. But how much does a mass shooting cost exactly? $618.74. But the lives that were taken for that was priceless and will never be able to pay that back.
An 18-year-old can walk into the store and purchase a firearm. Is that accurate?
At that particular time, yes.
Is it accurate now?
No, sir.
What is it now?
It's 21.
Irrelevant. You can answer the question, sir.
21.
You have to be 21 years old to purchase a firearm.
Yes, sir.
On March 9th, 2018, only weeks after the massacre, Republican Governor Rick Scott signed into law the bipartisan-supported Senate Bill 7026, also known as the Marjory Stoneman Douglas Public Safety Act. It changed many things, but the meat and potatoes of the act banned people under 21 years of age to purchase a firearm in the state of Florida.
And I was an NRA member when I became governor. I'm going to be an NRA member when I'm not governor. I'm sure there's NRA members that agree with this bill, some that don't agree with this bill. But the way I think about it, I'm going to do what I think are common sense solutions. The common sense things as a father, as a grandfather, as a governor is we need to have law enforcement in our schools. We need to harden our schools. We need more mental health counseling. We need to make sure people that are going to do harm, and think about it. We know these people are just talking. I mean, we know they're out there talking. We need to do something about it.
Today, thousands rallied nationwide demanding Congress act now. They gathered with March for Our Lives. The organization was formed in the aftermath of the Parkland school shooting in 2018. Organizers say there were more than 450 rallies across the U.S., the largest in Washington, D.C.
Only weeks after the massacre, students from Marjory Stoneman Douglas formed March for Our Lives. It is the most powerful and impactful organization this nation has ever seen in such little time. Not just thousands, but hundreds of thousands of people worldwide orchestrated student walkouts in major cities.
Welcome to the revolution.
Tell me how high is your patience? Can I be saved?
To gun violence. This is normal. Normal to the point that I've learned to duck from bullets before I learned how to read. My brother, he was in high school when he passed away. Ricardo was his name. How big is your love? Tell me how high is your patience? Oh, can I be saved? How high
When you take 3,140,167, the number of students enrolled in Florida schools, and divide it by 3,303,355, the amount of money Marco Rubio has received from the National Rifle Association. It comes out to $1.05. Is that all we're worth to these politicians? $1.05? Was $17.85 all it cost you that day, Mr. Rubio?
If you listen real close, you can hear the people in power shaking.
Today, but this isn't over. This is the beginning of the end, and from here we fight. It is time to fight for our lives.
Too many parents have to go through this. This is not a club that I wanted to be in. This is not a club that any of these families wanted to be in. So fight with us and help us demand change, because you don't want to be fighting from this side with the hole in your heart that cannot go away.
Wow, never underestimate the power of unity, passion, and young adults. I wish I could explain everything that happened over the years, but I need to fast forward back to the trial. Just a quick recap, opening statements for the penalty phase started on Monday, July 18th, 2022. And while this was happening, even though Joaquin Oliver's father wasn't physically at the trial, he was making waves elsewhere.
He shot my friends and my teachers, and then after that he said goodnight, and he started shooting everybody.
In just 1 year, 4,368 children lost their lives to gun violence, enough to fill 52 school buses. Senator Ted Cruz receives more money from gun groups than anyone serving in Congress. So he took those empty buses to his doorstep to make a point.
The shooter of my son went to a store and bought an AR-15. The shooter from Uvalde did the same thing. Are we gonna keep believing that our leaders are making a priority out of this and they will fix this problem? No. So now we have to be more disruptive with our message.
Now, every school bus in America will become a vehicle for change. Scan any school bus on Snapchat to take action and help stop the next school shooting from ever taking place. 4,368, the number of children killed by gun violence in 1 year, which equals 52 school buses. For all of the kids who never made it back on the bus to go home. All 4,368 of them. These vessels are now moving mementos. They each tell stories of just some of those lost too soon to gun violence. Each desk has something of theirs that helps others see a mere glimpse of their world they once lived. Joaquin's parents, Patricia and Manuel Oliver, have dedicated their pain and a purpose to try to find justice for their son and hopefully open the public's eyes to their misery so you won't have to experience it the same. Believe it or not, when Joaquin was only 12 years old, he actually wrote about gun violence. And what's even more chilling is Joaquin wrote that letter on February 12, 2013, 2 days shy of 5 years when he would be killed. Manuel Oliver hand-delivered his letter to Ted Cruz's assistant. And it reads, "Dear U.S. gun owner, I am writing this letter to talk to you about how we're going to solve this gun law movement. Most of you have a problem with the idea of a universal background check. Why are you mad that there's a background check? It's for your own good. Maybe you are fond of having crazy people with death machines. You shouldn't have anything against background checks if you're innocent. Thank you. Joaquin, Coral Springs."
Yes, you did! No, you didn't! I did!
And while activism is in the air, all of the families and even teachers put their energy into nonprofits and foundations. All of the victims' families came together against their differences and created the coalition called Stand with Parkland.
A report highlighting security failures in the Parkland school massacre.
We've come together to try to tell our story and really the reasons behind the tragedy, what caused it.
We realized that things needed to change.
My son was one of the first to die.
There were so many failures, so many inactions in the years leading up to the day that kid was standing in the hallway pulling the trigger. It has taught us that you have to have layers of protection.
We had to look at it so that we could focus on the need to secure the campus, improving mental health screening and support programs. And finally, if people were going to own them, we had to have responsible firearms ownership.
So what makes Stand with Parkland unique is that we've set aside the issues that are most divisive and focus on the pragmatic solutions that we know will help solve the problem.
Being in a group like Stand with Parkland, where we are of different backgrounds and different political views, we're working together as one. I think that that brings power along with you because it really is such a cross-section of our community. It's a force.
And that's what Stand with Parkland is. It's around the common ground. I think that shows when we come to any legislator's office, local, state, or federal.
We saw political courage here in Florida. We saw both the Republicans and the Democrats in Florida's state legislature come together to pass the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act. This bill addressed our 3 pillars that we adopted.
To the parents that think that this can't happen in their child's school or in their community, that's what I used to think. And then it happened.
It can happen to you. It probably in some way will touch you, whether it's directly someone in your family or someone you know or a friend of a friend. Mass shootings, they're happening at an alarming rate. It is truly an American epidemic.
So hopefully, Stand with Parkland is so successful, we put ourselves out of business. That would be the ideal. That would be when all America's students and teachers are safe and free of fear at school.
Sorry not sorry to get off track of the trial again, but it was worthy of mentioning. I could honestly dedicate an entire video just on the numerous organizations, foundations, and causes these families and the community have established for change. But what didn't change was the fact that this trial dragged along for 88 days. 88 days for the families, the jury, the attorneys, and the witnesses. Everyone worldwide, countless people watching and waiting to see what would happen. Would Nicholas Cruz get life in prison without parole, or the death penalty? In Florida, for a death penalty case, it requires every juror to unanimously vote for the death penalty. Even just one vote for life without parole would grant him life without parole. So all of the 12-panel jurors need to vote death for all of the 17 charges of murder and the 17 charges for attempted murder. Remember, he killed 17 people and injured 17 others. As the trial was at the eve of concluding, the 12-juror panel took several days to deliberate. But on October 13th, 2022, the jury met their decisions.
The first-degree murder of Luke Hoyer was committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner without any pretense of moral or legal justification, yes. Reviewing the aggravating factors that we unanimously found to be established beyond a reasonable doubt, we, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant a possible death sentence, yes. One or more individual jurors find that one or more mitigating circumstances was established by the greater weight of the evidence, yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt outweigh the mitigating circumstances, no.
Unbelievable. 3 out of the 12 jurors decided life without parole would suffice because, well, he has a mental illness. No shit, Sherlock. Of course he's got mental illnesses. He's got a list full of them. No one in their right mind will do what he did. But this is deja vu when James Holmes was also given sympathy and granted life without parole after killing 12 people in the 2012 Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting.
It was yet another gut punch for so many of us.
I'm stunned. I'm devastated. There are 17 victims that did not receive justice today.
I'm disgusted with our legal system. I'm disgusted with those jurors.
This shooter did not deserve compassion.
And this animal, still is going to now have life in prison without parole.
What it says to me, what it says to my family, what it says to the other families is that his life meant more than the 17 that were murdered and the 17 that were shot and the thousands of people in that school, in that community that are terrorized and traumatized every single day.
I sent my daughter to school and she was shot 8 times. I am so beyond disappointed and frustrated with this outcome. I do not understand. I just don't understand this.
This is what my son saw. He saw the gunman as he turned and pulled the trigger.
What kind of people are we? There should be an automatic penalty for someone that does that.
You set a precedent for the next mass killing, and nothing happens to you. You'll get life in jail.
If not now the death penalty, then when? When?
How could you not give him the death penalty?
This animal deserves to die.
This is insane. Right? Everyone knows, right? This is insane. We need justice.
All of the family's final statements were monumental, but Max Schachter said it best.
But you can't fix evil. It is such a disservice to people that are struggling with mental illness to use that as a mitigator for what he did. There's so many people in this country that suffer from mental illness. They're not going out torturing and murdering people. You mentioned he's got brain damage? Really? Where's his brain damage? In what area? To say that is insulting to people that really suffer from brain damage. He walks, he talks, he can converse, He can hold a job. He's a better shot than most people. There's no brain damage here, and it's insulting to people that truly have it. He did it all. He held a job all by himself. This murder was well thought out, research planned, premeditated. He knew exactly what he was doing was wrong. He got enjoyment out of it and watching people suffer. He studied doing this for years, even long before she passed away. He wanted to do this. He wanted to kill people. This was an act of pure evil. Society tried for almost 2 decades to try to rehabilitate him. He had more mental health treatment than anyone. Henderson was at his house for hours a day. Hours a day. But he fell off the grid, right? They tried to get him off his pathway to violence, but nobody was successful. This wasn't somebody that fell through the cracks and you know it, or got lost in the system. They tried, but they could not change his determination to inflict pain upon everything that it touched, whether it was animals or human. He is a sociopath that does not deserve to live amongst us. This creature, that creature, has no redeemable value. And the other prisoners that you will encounter in your new life will inflict that pain upon you, hopefully 17 times over again, until you're screaming for mercy, just like your victims.
And I'll share one more statement since it's epic. Manuel Oliver finally got to speak.
I was advised not to be in this room since the very beginning of the trial. Because if I have said something wrong, you guys could complain. And then I will feel very guilty. Not only for my family, but for the other families. So I took an advice from some of my friends here and decided to stay home and watch you guys all time. And watch my brave girls, Andrea and Patricia, doing what they did. And I saw how this doctor was explaining the autopsy of Joaquin. Details that I was avoiding. Because I always hoped that Joaquin did not suffer. But he did suffer. You shot my kid 4 times. You blew his head. His marvelous brain and ideas and dreams. You destroyed them. Shot him 4 times. You needed an AR-15 to do that. Because otherwise Joaquin would have beaten the shit out of you. So you were coward enough. And you can be cowards in this life. Hiding your actions. The middle finger, lady. Apologizing for a middle finger. You need to learn how to do a middle finger. So you don't need to apologize to anyone.
Even Governor Ron DeSantis got wind of the verdict and had to state his opinion also.
I think that if you have a death penalty at all, that is a case where you're massacring those students with premeditation and utter disregard for basic humanity, that you deserve the death penalty.
As they say, not all heroes wear capes. On April 20th, 2023, not only were countless people smoking their fair share of the devil's lettuce, but something serious happened. Governor Ron DeSantis proudly signed the bipartisan-supported Senate Bill 450. This bill helps prevent another miscarriage of justice. It deletes the requirement for a total unanimous vote for capital punishment. Now only 8 persons in the jury need to recommend death if 4 others disagreed. Florida now holds the lowest threshold for anti-unanimity votes in death penalty cases. As of today, only 24 states utilize the death penalty, and only 3 states allow non-unanimous verdicts. Okay, but now that the trial is over, what will happen to Building 12? Well, remember Scott Peterson? His trial will finally begin for 7 counts of felony child neglect and 3 counts of misdemeanor culpable negligence. His lawyer filed a motion for jurors to visit Building 12 also. So unfortunately, the building won't be demolished quite yet. So far, the Parkland penalty phase trial in 2022 is the biggest mass shooting to ever go to trial in American history. And Peterson's case sets new grounds also. Law enforcement has never been charged for these types of crimes. And if Peterson is found guilty, not only could he face the rest of his life in prison, but it will set a new standard and repercussions for future admittance. Peterson was well decorated in his 32 years of law enforcement. He not only got Deputy of the Year, but he also got School Resource Officer of the Year. To be fair, after researching the details, I don't think he's gonna lose his case. I personally think David Taylor should be held more responsible. If he radioed to advise it was gunshots and not just fireworks, lives might have been saved. Fingers can be pointed in every direction though. Dozens of events and people are to blame. Alright, but listen to this. From February 14th, 2018 to October 26, 2022, when the trial ended, it has costed $2,595,641 just to house and supervise this piece of shit. And guess who pays all of that? Taxpayers. And that's not including the $2 million that the state of Florida spent just prosecuting him. Cruz will spend the rest of his meaningless, miserable life in a maximum security prison right outside Miami. Unfortunately, he will be protected from other inmates and will probably spend the rest of his life alone. But I hear there's a code, and when you kill 14 innocent children, even the worst criminals in maximum security aren't okay with that. And they will find a way to get to him. His name will fade, but these will not. Luke Thomas Boyer, Martin Duque Anguiano Jr., Gina Rose Montalto, Alex Logan Schachter, Nick Paul Dworet, Helena Freya Ramsey, Elena Joanne Petty, Alyssa Miriam Al-Hadef, Carmen Marie Shentrup, Chris Brent Hickson, Aaron Lewis Weiss, Scott J. Beagle, Jamie Taylor Gutenberg, Meadow Jade Pollock, Cara Marie Laughran, Joaquin Guac Oliver, and Peter Wang. Most people don't know this, but lives were not lost just on February 14th, 2018. Shortly after the 1-year anniversary of the massacre, a student took her own life, and her name is Sydney Aiello. Sydney suffered from survivor's guilt and was diagnosed with PTSD. Most people didn't notice the signs because she seemed happy, but in reality, she struggled attending her college classes and didn't ask for help. One of Sydney's best friends was Meadow Pollock, but then the day after Sydney's burial, another blow. Another student took his life also. His name is Calvin Desir. They didn't get shot on February 14th, but it's sad they still died by a gunshot with their own hands. This should never happen, especially so young. Sydney was 19, but Calvin was only 16. They weren't mentioned in the trial, but their names should be recognized because they too deserve so much more. If you're struggling with suicide ideation, please don't be silent. You can call 1-800-273-TALK. They will listen and they will help. As of today, Parkland is the 4th leading worst school shooting in American history. Since January 2013, there have been over 900 school shootings, K-12, in America. And and there have been over 1,000 total if you're including universities and colleges. It's alarming to say the least, and America needs to focus on mental health more than anything right now. Every day, about 12 children die from gun violence in America, and another 32 are shot and injured. About 68% of guns used in school shootings were taken from their home, friend, or relative. And 93% of school shooters planned the attack in advance. So that means in almost every documented case of active shooters, there were warning signs. So if you see something, say something, because this is a matter of life and death, in the worst ways possible. Over 10 years ago, we started red flag laws. Most people haven't heard about it, and they don't really know how it works if they have. Red flag laws are extreme risk protection orders that can help reduce suicide and can also try to intervene in potential mass shootings. If you know of any threats or concerning behavior, you can contact your local law enforcement and/or FBI. But if you, yourself, the one listening right now, is the one making threats and contemplating some serious things, you do not need to suffer in silence. Please do yourself a favor and call SAMHSA's National Helpline. The acronym stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. There is hope and there is help. It's free, confidential, 24/7, every day of the year. The number is 1-800-662-4357, which spells help. You yourself can call, or a family member can call for you. Hurting others never helped anything or solve any problems. It just created more. So please, reach out. They provide referrals to local treatment facilities, support groups, and community-based organizations. You won't only be proud of yourself for making better choices, but others around you will also be proud of you. And it's not easy loving everyone. You don't have to even like them. But you don't have to choose violence to succeed. Unfortunately, these beautiful people are mostly known for the last 6 minutes of their life. But they were so much more than this. This tragedy is not their identity. As I studied their lives over weeks, even months, getting to know them, it broke my heart 17 times over and over again. And I think about them every day. And the least I can do is tell you a little bit about who each of them were. A more proper tribute video will be posted after this documentary. It is the least I can do. This case is special to my heart. Each one of their cases are. And I hope after this, you might be like me a little bit and take a piece of them with you everywhere you go. Every time I see Oreos, I think of Nick. And every time I see a basketball, I think of Luke and Joaquin. Every day, you can do something to remember them. Here's to the 17 plus 2. For Jamie, dance. Jamie was a beautiful person inside and out. She was a competitive dancer, but when she wasn't dancing, she was either volunteering at her local humane society to help the animals, or volunteering teaching special needs kids how to dance. At only 14 years old, she was wise beyond her years. She dreamed of being a pediatric physical therapist. She wanted to help kids take their first steps. So in honor and remembrance of her, dance. I found this gem. Here's a picture of Jamie and Gina. And speaking of Gina, if you couldn't get her to answer the phone, it was probably because she was too busy with her nose in a book, taking her imagination elsewhere. She once said when she grows up she wanted to live in a library. But if she wasn't reading, she was practicing her color guard skills. But if she wasn't reading or practicing, she was either drawing or painting, because she was quite the artist. So to remember Gina, pick up a book, or go to a library for old time's sake, or draw something beautiful. Helena. Hailing from England, she had a love for cats, enough so that she took in 2 strays. And then those cats had kittens, so one time she had 13 altogether. Her boyfriend was music and loved going to concerts with her friends. And she was super smart, like extra smart. She made the AP classes look easy. She appreciated the Asian culture and particularly had a fond liking to K-pop music. So to remember her, go to a concert, listen to some K-pop, and share a picture of your cat. Peter always looked out for everyone else. When his family went to Disney, there were a lot of them, and if someone dragged behind, he made sure the rest of the group slowed down. And that's Peter for you, always thinking about others. He was quiet at times, but never sad. He loved fast cars, playing video games with his friends, and watching anime. Peter watched so much anime, one time he told his brother there was no more anime to watch. And since Peter is an anime connoisseur, he would know the best ones, of course. And his favorite were Naruto and Dragon Ball Z. So to remember Peter, go play some video games with your buddies and watch some anime. Here's Peter and Elena in the same picture. And speaking of Elena, she was more of an introvert, but would get out of her shell when she would help volunteer through her church. God was the staple in her life. One of her favorite things to do was volunteer at the soup kitchen on the weekends. She had a love for JROTC, took it very seriously, and even got awarded Best Cadet of the Month. When she was home, you could find her on the couch, watching TV and cuddling with her dogs Diego and Leo. And she was constantly stirring the pot. Literally, that is, as she loved to help her mom cook. So to remember Elena, volunteer at a soup kitchen and go stir that pot. As for Nick, he was the best swimmer, hands down. He even got a full academic scholarship to attend University of Indianapolis. But he didn't stop there. He dreamed and had goals to compete in the 2020 Olympics and represent his home country, Sweden. And I don't doubt he would make it or disappoint, because he took the home title for both the 50 and 100 freestyle for Broward County Athletics Association Swimming Championships. I think he's part merman, but that's none of my business. What is the breakfast of champions, you ask? You guessed it, Oreos. It was cute when his family found a hidden stash in his closet. So to remember Nick, go for a dip, but don't forget to eat your Oreos first. Here's a picture of Nick and Coach Hickson. And speaking of Coach Hickson wasn't just a coach. He was a husband, a father, a veteran, but most of all, a hero. And he was a hero before February 14th. When two of his pupils were having tough times, he let them stay at his house with his family for 2 weeks, helped them out, mentored them, and got them back up on their feet again. If he saw something negative, he was that positive influence to make a change for the better. And his favorite snack was M&Ms. So, to remember Coach Hickson, go grab a bag of M&Ms. As I've said before, not all heroes wear capes, but they do drive golf carts. And guess who else drove a golf cart? Coach Aaron Feiss, of course. When he wasn't coaching, he was a husband and a father. When most kids want to get out of high school and move on, he actually is the OG of MSD, since he graduated in 1999, and in 2002 he returned to coach football and has been there ever since. After his death, the team started a new tradition. As they get onto the field, they all rub his belly for good luck. And they have a new motto called Feiss Up, which is the acronym for fearless, emotion, intensity, and sacrifice. Everything Coach Feiss was about. So in honor to remember Coach Feiss, Feiss Up. Martine, what a sweetheart. He worked so hard at his studies, learning English since he was from Mexico. Every day he'd come home and study, making sure his grades were up, because he told his mom one day, when he's older, he wants to be able to take care of her and get a good job. I imagine him as a Jedi fighting the dark side in a galaxy far, far away, because this boy breathed and lived Star Wars. May the Force be with you, Martine. And to remember him, go watch some Star Wars. Scott, Mr. Beagle. When the school needed a cross-country coach, Mr. Beagle didn't hesitate to step up. He didn't know a lick about cross-country, but you wouldn't have noticed that because he was a natural. So in remembrance of Scott, Mr. Beagle, go for a run. But if you're really feeling wild, go to a summer camp because that's where his true passion was. For Alex, he loved being a part of the marching band. He played the baritone, but was mostly known for playing the trombone, but didn't have a mean bone in his body. But that's not all he was good at. He loved playing sports too, basketball and football. He even scored the winning three-pointer in basketball for his championship game in 5th grade. He loved smoothies, and one of his favorite cars was the Tesla. So now every time I see a Tesla, I think of Alex. So to remember Alex, go drink a good smoothie. And every time you see a Tesla, think of him. Meadow. Oops, I mean Princess Meadow. She was very proper in pink, as always. This princess loved going to the gym and going on hikes with her boyfriend. Not only beauty, but also brains. After she graduated, she had plans to study law, and after her death, her beloved brother decided to take on that honor and study law for her. So in remembrance of Princess Meadow, wear something pink, and don't forget leg day, and go get swole. Alyssa. Dear Alyssa. She was so silly, even though she was captain of her soccer team. The night before her death, she played the game of her life. Her mom said in the car after the game, "You know you just played the best game ever." And she replied, "I know, Mom." Typical teenager. As I researched all of their lives, it did take me back to my high school days. But I'll be honest, Alyssa struck me the most. And it's because I found this video that her mom decided to share of Alyssa in her room. The video was ranting about trying to find a Spanish textbook, and when her mom tried to find it for her, she trashed the room trying to look for it. And as you can see, they're going over the room, but her walls are painted Tiffany with white furniture. And it took me back because my room was also painted Tiffany and had white furniture. So thanks, Alyssa, for taking me a little deeper into my memories. So in remembrance and honor of her, paint something Tiffany and go kick some soccer balls like a boss. Cara. She was quiet and humble, but don't be fooled, she was a great dancer. She took on Irish dancing to touch more on her cultural roots. If she wasn't at the studio dancing, she was practicing her gymnastics. She had lots of good friends, but her true element shined brightest around her family. She loved Disney movies and superhero movies. And when she could, she would actually go watch new movies at the theater with her friends. Call her a water baby because she was always in it. Every chance she got, she went to the beach and would catch some waves. Apparently, she was quite the surfer. She never failed to make her parents proud. She was always making honor roll at school. So in remembrance of Cara, go ride some waves at the beach. Or just go watch a Disney movie. Carmen. She loved style and new trends. Her makeup was always on point, as well as her shoes. She was empathetic at heart, and deep down, she wanted to find a cure for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, better known as ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. It attacks the nervous system and weakens muscles. Carmen was a straight-A student, so I don't doubt she would have tried her best to cure ALS if she had the opportunity to. She already got accepted into the University of Florida Honors Program. The day after her death, she received a letter informing she made it on the National Merit Finalists. She would have made the world a better place for sure. And if she did, she would be most fashionable while she did it. So in remembrance of her, go buy some new shoes. And girls, go put some black eyeliner on to feel a little bit more posh throughout your day. Lukey Bear. That's what his mom used to call him, and he didn't even mind as he got older. He was considerate. Even though he knew he could, he still asked his parents before he changed the channel to make sure they were done what they were watching. He loved playing basketball, and after his death, his father found out through his friends that Luke would go play basketball with an autistic kid. It was sweet gestures because it sounded like the autistic boy didn't have many other friends, but Luke was there for him. But just so you know, 90% of the time, Luke was eating chicken nuggets. If he had anything to choose off of a 5-star menu, this boy would choose chicken nuggets every time. So to remember Lukey Bear, go eat some chicken nuggets, and then go shoot some hoops. Alex and Luke weren't the only basketball lovers. Guac loved basketball, and his favorite team was Miami Heat, as was Luke's. Dwayne Wade was Luke and Guac's favorite basketball player. Guac was even buried in Wade's jersey. Guac had a lot of friends. He was easy to get along with. And he had a really good love with his girlfriend. Before he died, he was writing love letters in the class before he got in the hallway. And unfortunately, she never received those letters, and they died with him. But she did get the flowers he picked for her that morning, and on prom, his best friend took her, and she wore the flowers in her hair. There's so many things I could say about this guy. He was so silly. He would make others get out of their shell just by his goofiness. He felt the music, and he would just dance like no one was watching when everybody was watching. But that's why everyone loved him. He didn't care what others thought. He was just himself. His dance moves broke the floor, and probably caused a ripple effect if he let it. So to remember Guac, dance like no one is watching.
Stankin', nigga, what the fuck you thinking, nigga? I won't die. Believe in life after love. I can feel something inside me say, I really don't think you're strong enough, no. Do you believe in life after love?
If you think I forgot about Sydney and Calvin, you're wrong. To remember Sydney, find your inner peace, meditate with some yoga. And for Calvin, he wanted to be an engineer. So for him, go put something together. Remember the 17 plus 2 and the 17 others. I could not be more proud of this community. Their strength shows through their resilience. Their innocence was stolen, but they reclaimed their nest. They will continue to rise. And they truly are eagles, because eagles use the winds of the storm to soar higher than the storm itself. If you take anything with you from this video, I hope it's the fact that you can overcome evil. Their countenance might be sharp-edged, but it's because they're never going to let this happen again. I hope their strength has become a new strength for you as well. MSD Strong. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for the closing music video Marjorie Stoneman Douglas students made with a song called Shine. Stay safe, geeks.
You threw my city away. You tore down the walls and opened up all the gates. You ruined this town. You burned all of the bridges and you slowly let us drown. But you're not gonna knock us down. We'll get back up again. You may have hurt us, but I promise we'll be stronger. And we're not gonna let you in. We're putting up a fight. You may have brought the dark, but together we will shine the light. And whoa, we will be something special. Whoa, we're gonna shine. We're gonna stand tall. Gonna raise up our voices so we'll never ever fall. We're done with all your little games. We're tired of hearing that we're too young to ever make a change. 'Cause you're not gonna knock us down. We'll get back up again. You may have hurt us, but I promise we'll be stronger. And we're not gonna let you in. We're putting up a fight. You may have brought the dark, but together we will shine the light. Whoa, we're gonna shine. We can hug a little tighter. We can love a little more. Laugh a little harder. We can stand up and roar. If we all come together, it will be alright. Stand up for one another and we'll never give up the fight.
We refuse to be ignored by those who will not listen. There are so many things you can do to get involved. Reach out to your congressman. Mail, call, and tweet.
The smallest of words can make the biggest difference.
Be the voice for those who don't have one.
Together, we have the power to change the world around us.
You're not gonna know